Today is the day after the State of the Union address. I'll be giving what I saw from it. So many people, including myself, we had concerns that Joe Biden might not be able to make it through the entirety of a prolonged speech. There were many people that thought that the Democratic Party or Joe Biden himself would make the speech shorter to give him better publicity in the case of some Joe Biden stumbles, which have been very prominent in the media as of late. But he did not seem that vulnerable. He had a few moments where he was just like, ah, blah, 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 but he bounced right back from him, and he was on the offense for the majority of the speech. It was a very different tune from what we've recently seen of the president, which has not been much. It was the closest thing I could say it looked like. There was a speech that he gave. I think he was in California, and he was forgiving some student loan debt, but he seemed very on point during that speech. Granted, it was a small crowd, and they were very supportive of Biden, so it was not anything like the State of the Union crowd with people from all political spectrums, especially those, say Marjorie Taylor Greene, who highly opposed the president. So it was definitely interesting to see him in a mixed environment with those kinds of people and how he reacted. I thought it was hilarious. He did not rebut his age. He actually leaned into it, saying things along the lines of, when you get to my age, and then cracking jokes based on that. The president had not really been that adamant to lean into his age. He's seen it kind of like, I'm fine, I'm old, but I'm fine. But today there was a very humorous undertone, and it was honestly really nice to see. I mean, the Speaker of the House, I thought, was hilarious. He was doing like the rock smolder behind Biden pretty much the entire speech, and it was really funny to watch. He had some funny facial expressions, and Joe made him chuckle a few times too, because some of the things he said were so out of pocket in the best way. That was probably the most unexpected thing out of the whole night, was just Joe cracking jokes that landed. He seemed to always know what to say when faced with some opposition. There was at times some of the Republicans were yelling, but Joe was like, "Oh, you don't want to pass this bill?" Oh. It was good politics from Joe, because even though there was a lot of things that he said that might have not necessarily come to fruition because of him, or things that he might have taken responsibility for, good things that maybe he was not really responsible for, but he made himself look very good. And that was definitely his experience of basically living in DC for nigh on 40 years, living in politics. So his experience, if that's what it was, definitely came out tonight, of how to make himself sound very good. He also called out Donald Trump a few times, but not by name. He just referred to him as my predecessor, which was interesting. The Democrats, they chanted 4 more years a couple times, and I thought that was interesting. That's not anything new. The State of the Union always is very split with, you always see it, the Democrats standing or the Republicans standing based on who the president is. Now, there were a few times where everyone stood, and that was very few times, but I think it was civil rights and another issue where people stood unanimously. There was one guy that got kicked out. I'm not sure what he was protesting or yelling about, but there was one man that was yelling and he was kicked out. He's the only person I think that was treated that way. There was multiple people yelling at certain different points, but as far as I know, he's the only one that was removed. I don't know who he is or what he was protesting, but he did get taken out. Now, the other thing that I was looking at going into this was what was going to be the Gaza response. Is Joe going to, what's he going to do? But basically, he proposed a port to import aid to Gaza, which was interesting. I thought it seemed to have been received afterward by a majority, well, not a majority, but a large portion of Gaza supporters as a good idea. It is ambitious, I will say that. Building a port on the Gaza Strip, that is definitely an ambitious plan. He also said that he was very unwavering in his Israel support, which has been very apparent, but he doubled down on that. And I thought he might get some protests from Rashid Tlaib, and it did. I watched a few different outlets covering the event, and the MSNBC, they pointed the camera at Mrs. Tlaib, but instead of anything vocal, which I was kind of expecting, she just had a little sign, and it said, like, ceasefire now. It was something, it just didn't seem to have that much of an effect on the overall read of the room. It was just like, hey, here's my opposition. She seemed to have been a little bit quiet in comparison to how she had been. Now, that was interesting, but aside from that, I thought the final things he said, he called out someone in the crowd. It was like, hey, I'm closing. Everybody started clapping. It was funny. And she said, Joe Biden said, now I got just a few more things to say. I know you're excited, but just a few more things to say. And then he wrapped up, but I thought that was hilarious. Politics at its finest. Politics at its finest. Many, many things at play last night. Very many influential people in that room. And it was just so goofy to see them all together. But Joe Biden did really well in the terms of his speech. I mean, not looking at the context and the truth of it all, but that was one heck of a speech for the context of an 81-year-old president. I was very impressed. So that was my take on it, and thanks for watching.